And welcome to Think for Yourself. This is the channel where we encourage you to do exactly that and not to believe everything that you're told, even if you hear it here. Today we're going to be talking about the psychology of how the media manipulates you, particularly in the news. And so we're going to go over some basic ideas of the media using hypnosis. Some of this was documented with the CIA, not particularly in media, but I'll just give you a few things to look out for that you should be able to see on your own once you've had a little bit of background information on it. So for starters, to give you a definition of hypnosis, it is the induction of a state of consciousness in which a person loses the power of voluntary action and is highly responsive to suggestion. I got interested in this a few years back when I came across a video that somebody had posted about this very subject, and they were showing you examples of hypnosis techniques in the news intros, and I've since been able to find it. I do remember sending it to a friend, and when I went to check my email, it said this YouTube video is no longer available. And we all know that they're no strangers to controlling information. So anyhow, I'm trying to get some of this information back out there, just because it seems there's a lot of fear that's been pushed by the media. A lot of people are living in fear of things that they really don't have to if they actually would pay attention and think critically. So we're going to go over a few things, hypnosis techniques, and I'll just kind of explain them to you. One of the techniques they use is called sensory overload. Now what that is it's a way to distract your brain so that you're not absolutely focused on what they're saying. If your brain's going in 10 different directions, you're picking up more subliminally through your subconscious. So one of the ways they're going to do this is they're going to do exactly what it's called, sensory overload. They want to overload your sensors. So if you'll notice, a lot of news channels, and I'm still new at this, but if we can figure out how to put this up on the screen so you can see it, a lot of news channels are going to have a lot of things happening on the screen. Now this is to distract you. So an example is a lot of times you'll have a rolling bar at the bottom of the screen. Now this rolling bar is going to have different things go by, whether it's the Dow Jones or a separate news story that's going to go through. You're often going to have the logo of whatever the news company is, or whatever the station is. It'll either have a shimmer or it will be spinning. A lot of times you'll have a second logo that's clear that'll be shimmering or spinning. So you've got several things that are going on that are catching your peripheral vision constantly. In the meantime, you got the talking heads that are just going 90 miles an hour, and they don't take a break between it for you to really process it.
So I found this article on psychmechanics.com. It's called How TV Influences Your Mind Through Hypnosis. I wanted to point out a few things for you to see here. One here is called the flicker-induced hypnotic state. So what it says here is your mind slips into the hypnotic trance state within seconds of watching TV. This lowers your brainwaves to a lower alpha state commonly associated with meditation and deep relaxation. This is believed to be caused by the screen flicker and explains why you feel sleepy while watching TV. Under this state of trance, your subconscious mind becomes highly suggestible, and whatever information you receive from the TV becomes part of your memory pool. Now, something else down here that goes along with what we were talking about earlier, right here, it says, moreover, when you watch TV, you're not able to do any thinking because information is bombarded continuously into your mind. You get no time to process what you're watching. Your conscious mind is eliminated from the equation, and the information that you receive continues to become part of your belief system. So this kind of goes along with what we were talking about earlier in the news with, your talking heads or the reporters on TV. They don't really take a breath in between telling their news stories. They're throwing things out so quickly, you don't really have any time to digest them or think critically of them. And because they have you in this alpha wave state, you're absorbing a lot of this stuff into the subconscious mind. So it's what we would call programming. Now, this is something not really significant. It's just something I thought was kind of funny coming across this. It says, it's got TV talking to a human. It says, Sid, I told you no reading or thinking for yourself. Kind of ironic. I mean, that kind of goes against everything we stand for here on Think for Yourself, right? Moving right along, I found this other article on Forbes that says, why do we need 120Hz/144Hz monitors if the human eye can't see beyond 60Hz? Now, for those of you that don't know what we're talking about, HZ refers to how many frames per second the human eye can actually pick up. So this is as many as you can comprehend, this 60. And right here it says 120 to 144. That's more than double. Well, double or more than double. Now, it's interesting here that they call them monitors as well, because the implication here is that, this is for computers only. And realistically, that's actually for TVs as well. And the way you can tell is you can look in the back of your TV, and you're going to have a little sticker on the back that's going to say, most of the time it's going to say at least 120Hz. Especially on modern TVs. So they're putting out more than double frames per second that you can even comprehend. So you got to ask yourself, why would they do this? Well, if we scroll down here, they have an answer that was on Quora by this lady, Joyce Shinkane, and I suppose she's the expert here. And it says, of course, the human eye can't see things beyond 60Hz, so why are the 120Hz/144Hz monitors better? Now, first, they're just telling us that these things are better. Now, first off, how will we know? And second off, again, they're calling them monitors, like it's only for gamers or for computers. But right here, her answer is, the brain, not the eye, does the seeing. Now, think about that. The brain, not the eye, does the seeing. So she's pretty much straight up telling you that they're brainwashing people. I mean, your subconscious sees this, not your eyes. Now, of course, the exoteric, dismissive explanation they give here is the eye transmits information to the brain, but some characteristics of the signal are lost or altered in the process. What it sounds like they're saying here is, you're getting your 60 frames from your TV typically that your eye would see, and your eye's not going to be able to comprehend every single frame. So we put in extra ones in there so that you can help, figure out what we're trying to put up on the screen. Now, my question here is, how would my brain know the difference? If I'm watching a TV program and I miss one of the 60 frames per second, how would I know? It's not like you're going to be watching TV and you're like, oh boy, is that Spider-Man or is it a truck? I guess I need an extra 60 frames to figure it out. That just doesn't make any sense. Now, if we went into talking about subliminals, that's like a whole another video, really. But if you think about it, 120 commands, you've got 60 to 120. So they could put in 60 extra frames of commands or any type of message that they want that your brain will see and your conscious mind will not. Now, that to me is straight up brainwashing.
So that's one of the techniques they use, and part of that, it kind of runs into another technique called NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming. Now, the way that works is, well, there's a few ways, really. I'll give you an elementary school example, and if you're well-schooled in NLP, forgive me, this won't sound sophisticated. So an example of NLP is going to be a way of speaking vaguely to keep the brain thinking a little bit harder, and as a result, the brain's so busy trying to figure out what you're talking about that you're going to, again, be more subconsciously open to suggestion. And so to explain this, if I were to be having a conversation with one of my friends about my dad, going to the auto store with his friend Tony, I'd say, yeah, Dad and Tony went to the auto store. He came back pretty tired, So when I put in he came back pretty tired, the mind's going, which he? Is he talking about his dad or is he talking about Tony? So just throwing out vague things like that quickly and repetitively is going to scatter the mind a little bit as well, which is going to make you more susceptible to whatever the suggestion is. So this next technique is what I call the counsel leading the witness, and that is where you have a journalist who's talking to an expert, which if you pay attention, most news stations will have an expert on every day, or at least almost every day. There's always an expert. Now the implication there is this person knows everything about the subject, so you shouldn't even think about looking into it for yourself, because what do you know? This person's an expert. So anyhow, take that for what it's worth. But anyhow, they'll be talking to an expert, and they'll say things like, okay, say like the current situation that we're all dealing with now. They'll say things such as, so Dr. So-and-so, the medical expert, do you think we should be wearing masks? Do you think people should all be wearing masks when they go to the grocery store? And then of course, expert's going to say, yes, definitely wear masks. So obviously it's a setup question, and they're trying to, okay, everybody's going to trust an expert, and then the expert's going to tell you what to do, and that falls under suggestions and commands, which are used in hypnosis as well. Often when your subconscious is absorbing things and you're not really paying attention, you're more susceptible to different commands. So when they say, yes, definitely wear a mask, or yes, do this, these types of commands are more readily absorbed unless you have your defenses up already. So there's also keywords that they use, which are typically fear tactics. If you notice, whenever there is something like, whether it's Ebola or COVID or anything, they're going to come on the news daily, and they're going to interrupt whatever show you're watching, if you're a TV watcher, and they're going to interrupt the show so they can tell you how many deaths there were. And then the next day they're going to do it again, as if you can't wait to find out how many deaths there are. And the fact that they have to keep repeating it. Now that has to do with, typically there's a rule of 7 times in advertising that your consumers have to hear things before they actually decide to act on it. And so to drive the point home, in Psychology 101, repetition instills belief. So you just say it over and over and over. So if you're hammering on about deaths and, be afraid, deaths, be afraid, be cautious, be worried, which is essentially what they're putting out there, then that's going to be the result that they're going to get. Now, the other thing they will do is what's called inclusion. Now, that's where they throw out phrases like, we're all in this together, and look at what everybody's doing. They're all being good. They'll have stories of people wearing masks and being happy or donating masks or doing anything that is towards their cause or what their opinion is. Anything towards that is going to be looked at as good. Anybody who resists it based on logic is going to be made to look like a fool, and that's what we call demonization. An example of this, of course, would be if you aren't buying all the stuff they're trying to feed you, then they're going to look at you and call you a conspiracy nut. Now, I'll give you an example of what I mean. Particularly for this COVID situation, we've already had more people die from the flu this year than COVID, for one. But not that this video was meant to be about COVID, but anyhow. So in 6 months, the flu deaths were greater than what the entire world was in the first 6 months of this, COVID-wise. Only in recent days has the number been going up like crazy, and they're saying social distancing is working. Okay, so since everybody started social distancing is when the numbers all started going up. So that doesn't make any sense. And then they're going to tell us when it's going to peak and when it's going to end. I find all that highly suspicious. I could go on, but that's like a whole nother video. But sticking with hypnosis, I was able to look up on CIA.gov. They actually have, you probably just Google CIA hypnosis, and you'll be able to bring this up. If I can figure out how, I'll put the link in, but I don't know if they like that or not. So anyway, they were talking about hypnosis techniques for interrogation. And and obviously you're not being interrogated when you're watching the news, but some of the techniques would still apply. So one of the things I thought was interesting is that the subjects that were not aware that they were being put under these hypnosis techniques were the ones that it was most effective on. Even more interesting, if the subject has a good relationship with the hypnotherapist, then it's going to be much more effective. Now, that's because they trust them. So when you have somebody who trusts one media station, versus another, and, this is my news source and the rest of them are fake, they're already willingly trusting anything they say. So they could throw out something that's totally ridiculous, and as long as it's our team, then they're absolutely telling the truth. And so that's how manipulative this stuff is. Now, to the opposite side of that, it turns out that people that do not trust the hypnotherapist, or that are more resistant initially, are a lot harder to hypnotize, and it's a lot less effective, if not effective at all. So those of us who are aware of this kind of thing and see it, and don't trust, we're a lot less likely to be hoodwinked. So anyhow, just keep your eyes open out there. That pretty much wraps this one up. We're going to be putting out new videos, hopefully weekly soon. We'll see. We're still new at this channel. But anyhow, I just want to remind you to think for yourself, or someone else will do your thinking for you.